Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today I have Carolynne Hill from Hillside Market, and we have been working together for a while on a couple of projects, and I'm so excited to get a chance to chat face to face and share what she's doing with all of you guys. So, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast today. I'm super stoked to be here.
Awesome. So, um, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell a little bit about what you do and
Absolutely. So, my name is Carolyn, and I am born and raised rurally in Alberta, Canada. We're on the northern part of Alberta. I grew up, like I said, on an acreage, so I'm familiar with this way of life, if you will. My dad comes from a farming family, but I did not grow up on a farm or in a homesteading family per se. So a lot of this has been my own personal interests that have just expanded along the way as I've, grown into adulthood and have my own place now. So over the last few years, really have been deep diving into preserving my own food and gardening and dabbling with raising animals and growing a business alongside it. And yeah, I'll be able to talk your ear off, no problem.
I love it. I love how you kind of were like, I'm comfortable with it, but let's like go deeper. Like, I feel like that's kind of how I grew up. Like, my dad was a cattle rancher. We had an 1,800-acre cattle ranch, and both my parents were like hunting guides and stuff, but like, we were a little bit more, I don't know if they're like cowboyish. Like, so we had the cattle ranch and
Yep,
we were hunting all the time and that type of thing. And so we were too busy to even worry about like any type of preservation except for making jerky. And we were very consumerish. Like, we were buying everything from the grocery store except for our meat. And when I started our journey towards self-sufficiency, I was like, wow, we were definitely doing it wrong. Like, let's do this the right way. And so,
agreed. Like I grew up around it. Like obviously, like I'm gonna say my mame because it's French, but my mame, my grandma, and my papa, my grandpa, they were the ones that were the farmers, and of course, like they had same thing. They had pigs, they had cows, obviously farmed grain too. They were grain farmers as well, mixed operation. And my mame was a pretty avid gardener and did preserve her own food, but you didn't really appreciate it at the time for what it was.
mhm.
And then in my own household growing up, my mom had a little garden, but I think it was honestly mostly just something, it was something she enjoyed. It wasn't really like with the goal of like, let's grow our own food, fill our own freezer. But groceries also didn't cost nearly as much as they do now. I honestly like
Yeah.
things have gone, it's gone for my family, it's gone to the point that it's beyond just like the health reasons, it's even monetary reasons too that we're doing a lot of this.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think when I was a kid, we grew like tomatoes and zucchini, and that was like it.
Yeah, exactly,
But like,
exactly.
we now have two gardens that are probably equal close to an acre,
That's wild.
where, well, we have a big family
Yeah,
too. And I mean, we're growing everything, like, or at least everything that we can reasonably. And
yeah.
it's not just that, like, we have tomatoes and zucchini. It's like we're doing like all of our herbs, like both medicinal and culinary. And we're growing, cold weather crops and warm weather crops and like corn and potatoes and beans and like all of it. And because yeah, it is, I mean, for our family to eat from the grocery store would probably be $1,500 or more a month.
Easy. And I mean, you're talking in US dollars. I'm in Canada,
Yeah.
so and our conversion is
That's even higher
also
for you guys. That'd be
and
close to
our
2,000 for you
yeah,
guys, huh?
1,500 is probably like 2,400,
Yeah.
like 300 for us. And that honestly is not a stretch. Like I've been
Yeah.
baking my own bread for just the last year, and I'm just not because gardening season priorities. But
Yeah.
it
Oh,
was,
we definitely buy bread certain times of the year. Like I'm
yeah,
not even gonna.
exactly. I'm very like we can't. It doesn't need to be like all in or nothing.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. You'll be burnt out. So but
Oh
last
yeah.
week I just bought bread and it was $20 of bread, and my husband's like, "How much is a bag of flour worth?" Like for reference, and I was like a lot less than that.
Right. How
So
much
yeah,
was it for bread?
it was $20. I mean, I bought a loaf of bread, a bag of hot dog or hamburger buns, a bag of like dinner buns, and a bag of some sub buns. And
Yeah, that sounds about right. Holy
yeah,
moly.
people don't believe me. I've done reels in the past sharing my bread recipe, and I'm like, this week I saved $20 on bread or $30, depending. Sometimes meals require more bread.
Hmm.
Um, and people are like, no, that is a total lie. Like, you're not saving that kind of money. Like, you're not, bread costs $2. No, it doesn't, actually. Not when you're
Yeah.
feeding. I just used an entire loaf of bread for lunches for today, just last night when I was making lunches. So,
Well, like, yeah, I went to bread. I went to the grocery store last night and the kids had told me they were out of peanut butter and jelly, and I was like, we're getting ready to leave for 5 days. So I was like, oh, I'm not baking bread. So I was like, well, I'll just buy a couple of loaves. And like the cheapy, like, I only feed this to the kids because they feed half of it to the dogs loaves were 2.49 a piece.
yeah, I know.
I
And
mean, and
again,
that was the cheap, like
yeah,
icky bread. Like I'm not even sure it's bread, but they can put peanut butter between two slices.
hmm that's been a
And
huge motivator for us for sure. Like, the gardening thing for me happened by fluke. All to be honest, everything, all of this happened by chance for me. I didn't really go out looking to become an avid gardener or
uh-huh.
raise meat chickens or build multiple greenhouses or any of this. It's kind of just all I really what happened is that we actually moved to this property. My husband and I built a new property 7 years ago is when we did the change. And over the 4 years ago we started landscaping, like finishing landscaping and adding a garden and a greenhouse was part of my dream. And little did I know I would actually quite like greenhouses and gardening. And 4 years later we've got Hillside Market, which has been a business literally built around these interests. So it's growing and changing a lot as I go, and I'm figuring it out year to year, but lots of exciting things happening for sure.
So what all happens with Hillside Market?
So Hillside Market started out as a DIY building guide business. So what we did is 4 years ago, I built my dream greenhouse with it's called the Petunia. It's our OG greenhouse. So if anyone's watching and wants to check it out, that's the OGs, the Petunia. So it started it all 4 years ago. And really what happened is I was just looking to build something that wasn't going to cost a fortune because prefab packages are quite expensive. And we also wanted something that was going to last the test of time, which again, prefab packages are expensive and sometimes the quality is just not there unless you're really spending like top tier dollars, right?
And when you have like the
So
mountain winds and stuff like that, or the prairie winds, yeah.
exactly, I needed something that was gonna like stand and be solid and handle winter and 100-mile-an-hour winds because it happens and storms and So I got to work, drew up a plan. Back then, this is pre-COVID pricing. I built my greenhouse for $1,200 Canadian, which would be like 800 bucks US.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now it's more. It's probably more like honestly like $1,500 US to get everything you need now.
But to
But
get a real solid greenhouse, that's still
real
not.
solid, yeah. And she's like, that thing is anchored to the ground. It's not going anywhere. Ain't gonna blow over. But yeah, so I started out with building that greenhouse, and basically I posted it online. I'm always big into like home decor and I like pretty things. So I posted it on my Facebook home decor group that I was in, and the post went viral. That was my first experience of a viral post. And people were messaging, flooding my messages and comments by the thousands on this post of this greenhouse, asking me, "How did you build it? Tell me how you built it."
Wow.
And people sharing it, and
See,
from
my
then,
first viral post was people talking about how my children are going to be retarded because I homeschool them.
oh, wonderful!
Yeah.
It's so nice. Well, at least greenhouses was a little better received, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, people. So for me, that kind of just got my gears turning, and that's how the DIY guides were born. And then over the course of the next couple of years, I expanded the DIY guides and added more as people were like based on what people were asking for. And then that kind of went hand in hand with landscaping out our property, like our newly built property, things like adding chicken coop. And we also own a separate piece of land which has our off-grid camp on it. So like got an outhouse, got another enclosed garden there to keep the deer out. We call it the shack, but it's called the iris, and it's actually a 12 by 16 greenhouse plan. But how we use it, we've got a wood stove in it. We hang out in it. It's at our campground. So like next weekend, we're hosting some family. And for example, if the weather's kind of crappy, got a place to hide out in. It extends
Nice.
our camping year too. So, in the fall or in the spring when it's a bit cooler, you can have fire inside there and it's a vibe for sure. So if
Oh
you're
yeah.
watching and you're wondering what it looks like, just check out my page. I post a lot about it on my Instagram page, which is the Hillside Market. And
I
then
love how
yeah,
like all your buildings have personalities. Like
I like I said, it kind of ties into like the I really like pretty things and like the cohesiveness, and it's really grown into like they all have a very similar vibe and look. Like we're
yeah,
over
I
20.
around our place we're more like the door fell off the cabinet again.
Yeah, I know. Don't get me wrong. We're kind of at that point now too, because I want to scale and do all these other things. And it's like, okay, how do we build this with nothing? Let's go
Yeah.
dumpster diving. But yeah, we as the DIY guys, we've got over 20 DIY guides, and that was kind of the foundation to start being able to offer more. Last year I was able to I basically I guess I created the Hillsider magazine, which is our quarterly homesteading magazine. And the idea behind that was really just to bring more people together that feel the passion, that want to spread this information and bring more people into this homesteading lifestyle, and for all the right reasons. Because I don't know about you, but I know for me, like I'm very open with my audience. I am not an expert at all. We are learning together. 4-H. I took 4-H when I was a kid. I grew up in 4-H, so I love
Me
the
too.
slogan
My
"Learn to
kids
do
still
by
do it.
doing." That is the best slogan. Learn to do by doing. I still live by that. Is that
Yeah.
strongly like presented in the States too?
No.
That 4-H slogan? What? Really?
No.
So for us, that was our 4-H slogan. I think it's, as far as I know, that's Canadian. Is learn to do by doing, and that
Oh,
has
I love
stuck with
that.
me from the beginning. I'm sure for you that's very relatable with the homesteading,
Oh yeah.
the homeschooling curriculum and whatnot too. So I firmly believe in that. And I'm learning to do by doing, and I'm hoping to bring along more people with me as I learn to do by doing, building this community, building this network. I've learned that we do not need to be experts in order to teach others. As a lot like all you need is to know a little bit more than the person beside you, and they're gonna like what you have to teach them and like what you have to share with them. And that's basically what the magazine's been about. We're launching the summer edition this Thursday, so we're 2 days away actually. We've
Oh
done
wow, how
over,
exciting.
yeah, so it'll be year 2 officially of the Hillsider magazine.
Yeah, and they are beautiful.
They come together very nicely. And for
Right.
those who are listening,
Do
there's
you have
usually
one
a,
handy? Because I put
I,
this on I was just texting my daughter to bring mine, but
no, so we have done a few now, but
nice.
this is all of the ones that have been done so far.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, they're just beautiful and they're really high
they,
quality and they have amazing stories in them.
they really do. This is the last one I did.
Yeah,
Little idea.
which now she's coming in with it.
There.
See, I
See,
do have mine.
that looks like so cool. I love that. So yeah, this is the idea. We also offer their quarter crops. I release them with the season, so spring, summer, fall, winter. There's usually something new in every edition, and really good way to also connect with other creators and see, like, learn about other accounts that you might be interested in following for sure.
hmm Yeah, that's definitely, and I like how you kind of put like their handles in there too, so that you can find them like where they're at on Instagram or other social media.
Yeah.
So When I first started seeing all the magazines start coming out again, I say all of them because there's other
Yeah, other
yeah, there's
magazines
other
coming to
homestead
life.
families that have or not families, but creators that do magazines as well. And I was kind of like, are magazines going to actually can they hold the test of time? And I was actually reading in what's the name of the book? Oh my gosh. Staking Her Claim, about women homesteaders.
Okay.
And it's stories from women from like 1890 to like 1925, all that were homestead women. And actually my last podcast I brought this up as well. A lot of them made their extra money by writing for magazines about their
Cool.
homestead journeys. And I was like, oh my gosh, like homestead influencers have been around for like 150
That's
years.
actually so cool. I like that
Isn't
perspective.
that fun? Like
That is fun.
I'm writing a new book called Homestead History, and it's like a history curriculum that's going to cover like food and ag sociology. So I'm digging really deep into these things right now. But what they also talked about is in like I think it was 1910, the average family had a subscription to four different magazines.
I don't doubt it because I mean, there was no internet. That's how you learned.
Uh-huh.
That's how you got access to new information, stayed up to I don't doubt that whatsoever.
Yeah, and I see like a trend as people are trying to pull away from, not pull away from like, learning on the internet, but they're more willing to learn in a different way at this
Hmm.
point. And I think that the magazines that are coming out that you can sit and in your hands read these articles written by all of these like doers, that you're going to be able to learn so much more and have them handy. Like for me, I'm a very much like if it's a DIY type guide, it's going to be out in the garden with me. Like it's going to be
Hmm.
like chewed up, beat up, watered.
Agreed. Like if you're out there planting and you're like, I want to try to do this companion planting thing, and there's a chart in one of these, that has the
Uh-huh.
companion planting, you'll be like, okay, all right. You follow that
Yeah.
as a guideline for sure.
Or like sitting out on my patio, like I actually had it out the other day and I had someone come over that they were like, well, we're wanting to start our own store locally, but we don't want to step on your toes. And I was like, I actually brought up the article I wrote in it, and I was like, you can't have a local food system without local food. So whatever you have, sell it. Let's work together and barter with each other. Or if I don't have what I need, I can send people to you. Like this is a whole.
Agreed. And also the stronger that network becomes, the more sustainable it is. Something as simple as if your neighbor, like I'm gonna say it, farm stands, we'll use farm stands for sure as the consent or example here. If your neighbor has a farm stand and you have a farm stand and you've got a good relationship with your neighbor, there's nothing stopping you from asking your neighbor for support down the road and vice versa. Like if
Mhm,
somebody needs to just, you're running home or you're going to be home late and you need your neighbor to shut your stand down for you, that we need to go back to that kind of support
mhm,
system. It's not competition. Everything is not a competition, especially in like the food world. Like we need this. We need people to
mhm.
step up to the plate. 100%. And we need, not only do we need producers to step up to the plate, but we need consumers to step up to the plate.
Yes. Like I always tell people, like, train your consumers or your customers to treat you like the grocery store.
Hmm.
Like a lot of people, they'll go to farmers markets and stuff and they're like, oh, I'm, here to sell like a novelty product that you only get like on the weekends. And I was like, that's great to get a customer to come to your booth and talk to them, but then teach them to treat you like the grocery store. So whether that's coming to get all of their sourdough bread from you every week, or that they're
Hmm.
actually coming to your home and picking up, a car full of products like every other week or something, where they're getting their bread and their meat and their those types of things rather than their first stop being the grocery store.
And like for those listening, if you are an avid farmers market goer, tell people, encourage people, share what you go and buy from the farmers market week to week.
Hmm.
Myself, we have somebody locally that is doing they have a hydroponic setup for greens. So they've
Hmm.
got, basil, dill, uh, romaine lettuce, leafy green lettuce, whatever. So all winter long, instead of buying from my grocery store
Yeah.
where it comes from, I don't know where, I go to the farmer's market on Tuesdays, and for $12, I get a Ziploc bag full of homegrown greens right
Yeah.
here locally in town. Like the lady that sells them, she's like, you don't even need to wash these because we literally don't put anything on them. They are not sprayed with
Nice.
anything. We pluck them out of like the roots are all still attached. The plugs are still attached when they bring them. They're all harvested fresh that day. So yeah, if anybody is going and buying these kinds of things locally, tell your friends to do the same. Buy some for them. Get them hooked.
Right.
Like
Well, and
we
like for us, we only have farmers market during like the summer.
really, hey? Hmm.
Yeah. But we have people that you could buy year round from, so that's why I'm always like, make sure that your customers, or if you're a consumer, like you make those relationships and those connections so that you can still sell and buy all year long.
I feel pretty passionately about agriculture. My views on all of it has changed a lot over the years. I actually have my Bachelor of Science in Agriculture.
Me too.
Yeah, you as well. Nice. I started out with animal science and actually was always more interested in like the animal meat production side. Back in
Hmm.
the day when I was younger, I was very interested in actually working like directly with processing facilities, like for disease inspections,
That's
things like
actually
that.
I focused on animal science so that I could work like USDA inspection
Yeah.
type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So same idea, but it would have been like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got close when I was in university getting a summer internship and it didn't work out. But honestly, everything happens for a reason. The reality of it is where I live now, I wouldn't have been able to get a job like that. I would have
Yeah.
to move like to the more urban areas. And anyways, it all works
You
out.
know what?
But
Like it worked out for me because I got my first internship working in a plant getting ready for an inspection. So I thought, well,
cool.
that's really great. I'll learn the other side of it. And then I ended up doing so well at that. I got headhunted to a bunch of different companies and worked as like consulting, setting up for big like manufacturing style inspections and third party inspections to be able to sell at Costco. And I did
That is
that for
awesome.
almost 10 years. But then I hated that little companies couldn't get what they needed food safety wise to be able to sell on a larger market.
I know.
And it all kind of like kicked off from our local USDA food plant or butcher plant got shut down. So then nobody could sell their products retail. And so I was like, okay, I need to help fix this. And I quit working in the big companies and started working consulting on small farms. And that's kind of
That
where
is
this has gone.
amazing. So I actually moved into, I started my career in crop inputs. I worked in sales, so selling fertilizer, seed, chemical
Hmm.
to local producers. And I haven't been in it for a few years now. And I think it would be a difficult industry for me to re-enter because I do have some different thoughts and opinions on conventional
Yeah.
farming than I did when I was in it. However, what I do find interesting I compare the egg industry a lot to the medical industry. And I feel like when you're working in egg, if anyone's watched that show Painkiller, where it's on Netflix, it's a documentary, and it
I'll have to check that out.
shows the background of what it's like being a salesperson. So Painkiller is specifically about like pharmaceutical drugs, but some of the similarities with what I experienced working in egg as a salesperson is kind of alarming. And it has been a little bit eye opening for me that there's a lot of things, a lot of messaging that is kind of shoved down your throat to the point that like you live it, breathe it, believe it, seeping out of your pores. And I've been removed from that industry for a few years now, and I actually don't necessarily support some of the conventional methods that these crop inputs companies are pushing. I think the motive is a lot to do with money and not necessarily to do with the better way to do this for the future.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping to see a change in that, sometime in the next few years, hopefully. But it's definitely been just like the messaging we received a lot was we got to feed the world. The only way we're going to feed the world is if we do this way. And I
It's
don't agree
it's
with
a
that.
it's a drink the Kool-Aid thing because I
Yeah.
still work with a lot of people who
Yeah.
are working in the agriculture industry, and a lot of times I'll bring them on the podcast, not for any other reason except for they're like in a niche market or something where I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, let's talk about it.
Hmm.
And I still am, I hear things said that I'm like, no, no, that's not how it is. And
Hmm.
especially like I see coming from the ag industry and now going into the homestead or the, more holistic foods and stuff, you can really see both sides of it. And like, yeah, there's a lot of strange things that happen. Like,
I've Yeah, there's been a lot of eye-opening experiences in recent years that have obviously changed my opinions on some stuff too. Not saying I do not support farmers because that is absolutely
oh,
not the truth.
and
I
I
am
don't believe that farmers are the issue.
They are not the problem.
They've been taught,
Hmm.
taught, taught, and then they've been pigeonholed and cornered into having to use certain seeds and being in debt for
Agreed.
their equipment. And yeah, they are a slave to the system.
It's not even the salespeople. It's so much bigger than that. It's
Oh,
just
well,
like
yeah, because
saying
salespeople are taught to do that. And
they
yeah.
don't the sale like, and because I was a salesperson, like I didn't realize what was happening to me. And yeah, watch that documentary Painkiller. You
Okay.
might see some of the similarities I talk about. It's a difficult documentary to watch though. So be fair.
No, I'm excited because I read the book Big Chicken. Have you ever?
No, I haven't.
So it's about how antibiotics were used in the food system,
Hmm.
like over the last 100 years, and like why it was even introduced in the first place, and why like it's primarily illegal now at this point.
Yeah.
Like it was really good. Like I
Oh, that would be good.
super interested. I actually listened to it because it's easier for me to listen to some of those books, but
Yeah.
I was
I
nerding out
also
big
have a hard
time.
time reading. Not because I can't read.
Yeah, no. Well, I have children.
I can't sit still is mostly my
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like, I
listen
got
to
other
books
things
while
to
I'm
do.
weeding or something, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. No, the agri industry is it's a huge conversation. There's a lot to be said about it. The food industry too, and just I think that so personally, I believe that so like we the consumer have been so removed from the responsibility of feeding ourselves and our families
Yeah.
that it's creating a really big problem.
Yeah.
And we also an example I talk a lot about just on my own page, like whenever I'm in stories ranting about this,
Yeah.
I always use this example because people talk a lot about, the environment, doing better for the environment. If people cared so much for doing better for the environment, wouldn't you do something as simple as grow your own lettuce so that it doesn't come in on a semi truck?
Right?
Like it's like the easiest thing to do. You can literally grow it in your house in the wintertime even. Could you imagine? Like that's where I get excited about this like homesteading movement because I want to show people like there's so much more we can be doing and it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. If we want to make a change, we can make a change. And something as simple as if strawberries are out of season, then they shouldn't be at the grocery store. Like the
Yeah.
like it's just there's so many. It's a
Hmm.
wormhole of
It's
topics that
actually,
you go down.
my biggest goal in my business more is teaching like the next generation. So starting to change that mindset.
Yes,
And like one of the classes that I teach it locally, and then I'm teaching it at HOA this year, Homesteaders of America, with the kids, is having them put together what a whole supply chain looks like just to get their breakfast to their table.
I love that. That's so cool.
And they'll see all those inputs. Like
Yep.
I'll admit I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do it with the crew at HOA because usually I do it on a big whiteboard and like that's super boring for a bunch of kids at a conference. We might do it with
Yeah.
string or something, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. No,
But
there's so much to talk about when it comes to the food industry and how broken it is. Yeah, I
I
could be here for
remember
hours.
like I had a sales rep come in one time and teach me about how to use quaternary ammonia to clean all of our equipment. And, I'm like, okay, we're antibacterial anything, in the food industry.
Hmm.
And so, like I remember it was the last big company I worked for. Like I did an entire presentation to like the entire co-op board that owned this processing plant on why it was so good to be using quaternary ammonia on cleaning our food. And like I was
Hmm.
all in for it. Like it
I
was
get
the
it.
best idea, you know?
I
And
Yeah.
like I was like anti everything bacteria. I was like anti raw milk and the whole thing. And now I'll actually like pick things out of my raw milk and then drink it. Like,
It's very interesting, hey, how people who have experienced the other side are able to form these opinions for themselves down the road. Like actually, because
yeah.
I'm with you. I sold it all. I sold inoculant fertilizer. I sold chemical. I sold it all. I sold it all. I
Hmm.
sold all of yeah. Anyways, and for lack like we really didn't. I didn't know any different. I was actually expected to do that. If I didn't do it, I wouldn't have had a job.
Well,
So
yeah.
yeah. And that's why I say it would be kind of difficult, I think, for me to go back to that industry now because
Hmm.
I would be looking to have much bigger, deeper conversations about how we're doing things, how we can do them better in the long run for sure.
Well, I actually just did a post recently on all the colleges that have regenerative ag programs for kids that are interested in going into agriculture but don't want to go drink that Kool-Aid. There are some smaller programs and some regenerative programs at some of the bigger colleges that might actually, if you get more kids taking those classes, the colleges might see that there's actually a need for it.
That's actually very cool. The ag industry is forever changing.
Hmm.
You're totally right. The next generation coming up has a different view on it. There's no denying even myself versus like my parents' generation and my parents, like
Yeah.
it's changed so much. I do like to believe that critical thinking is becoming more like we're less inclined to
We're
follow.
starting to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Ask questions because we're starting to see some of the aftermath of not doing so and just
Yeah.
following.
And I think we
And
had a lot of kids like scared that that their families didn't have a way of feeding themselves.
I know.
And it
Yeah,
wasn't like a financial thing. There was nothing they could do to fix it. They went to the grocery store and there was no food.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a very interesting few years for sure. And like I said, I'm not denying that as large, like our recent worldly events have largely contributed to, my desire to be more self-sufficient and less reliant on the grocery store. And I just also don't believe that what's at the grocery store is honestly the best bet for you either. Like we can do so much better ourselves. We can do
Mhm.
better. Like if more people were able to get on board, having a stronger community network, whereas we wouldn't have to do it all ourselves. Like you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
bartering, trading. Somebody could just grow carrots. Somebody could just grow lettuce. And at the end of the year, you could swap. Like the opportunities for this kind of thing are endless. You just have to get more people on board. But I know it's hard for people too because we are consumed by our day-to-day lives, by our 9 to 5 jobs, by our kids'
Hmm.
extracurricular activities, and people feel like they don't have the time or the energy to take this kind of thing on. My only advice to you for that, if you're feeling like you're one of those people that you fall in that box, you just got to want it bad enough and you make the time for it. That's really all there is to it. It's hard
There's
work.
a there's a lot of truth in that. That's actually something I was talking about recently is even if you don't think you have a homestead skill, like my husband does mechanics. Like he's not a farmer. I'm teaching him to be a farmer. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just, and I mean, we've been doing it for 8 years now. Like he's got it more figured out, but we still have those questions. Like I was on a trip recently and he's like, babe, there's something wrong with a pig. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not home. Call the vet. Um, but he does all the mechanics for our neighbors on their like haying equipment, and we get 20 tons of hay a year from it. Like that covers,
That's a fantastic barter.
right? Like that covers almost all of our feed costs for our entire cattle herd for the winter.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, we had a lady call recently and she's like, hey, like I heard you do some mechanics. Can you do my brakes? And he's like, yeah, she's like, how much will it cost me? He's like, what do you have to barter?
that
And
is cool.
she's like, I have a half a gallon of local honey. We're like sold.
That
Like
is
that
so
is a deal and a
cool.
half.
I
And
love that.
so, I
We,
mean, even people who like work in regular 9 to 5 jobs, do you have a barterable skill that you could use in the evenings and weekends to gain like the higher quality products and the local foods? And, do you have an opt-out plan? And
yeah,
I think that's,
there's a lot of people too that are willing to just accept help, honestly, like straight up. Like You want to come get produce from my garden this summer? Come help me weed for a day. Honestly,
right?
like just pitch in. Like
There's
I want
actually
to share.
there's a farm locally that does like all root crops. That's like all they do.
Hmm.
Like potatoes, carrots, parsnips, the whole thing. And they have like acres and acres and acres of it. And come harvest day, like you come, you help them hand harvest, and for every hour you work, you get a certain amount of pounds of food.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then the rest they sell. This is their business,
Yeah,
they sell it to like, local grocery stores and stuff. But they have everybody out to help. And like, I mean, it's a community thing. Like people look forward to it every year and they take the kids and you have to like sign up for shifts because so many people want to do it.
that is so cool. But what's amazing about that is that it's root vegetables. So you're gonna put them in your cold room. Like that is so awesome. What a great idea.
Right? And it gets the kids involved and like I mean for my family, like there's a bunch of us. We could go out there and work for a couple of hours and have like all of our root vegetables for
So
like the
we've
year.
been doing meat chickens. This is year two for us. We
Uh-huh.
and like what how we've been doing it is that we've been ordering all the chickens in with a couple other groups of people so that we get bulk discounts. So a right there is another, opportunity for
Hmm.
people if you're listening. More incentive to build that network, build that community, and
Yes.
encourage more people
Because
to
the
get
cost
into
of
this.
shipping in birds is
It
ridiculous.
is. And even with our discount, I think we still paid like almost $4 a bird. I mean, that's Canadian. I don't know what you guys pay, but I thought it was expensive.
Yeah,
But
that sounds about right. I did a lot of research this year and found a different hatchery, and I think I paid $2.30 a bird. So that's
yeah.
about,
Did you do sexed or unsexed?
I did unsexed.
Yeah, this time we tried roosters because we like I just want to see. This is only year two for us, so we tried
Uh-huh.
males only. So we're gonna see what they finish out like, and
Well,
see
my
if
husband
we
likes
would
to
like
not
it.
butcher them till they're about turkey size, so,
Oh,
it doesn't really matter.
yeah, that's fair. I want to get it done and over with. But yeah, and then another thing that we did too for the meat chickens is that we also, that same group of people, went in collectively and bought bulk feed. So one of the boys found a large chicken producer a couple hours away from here and went down there and picked up 3 totes of chicken feed for us. So
Yeah.
that cut our costs down. Basically, we figured that instead of $22 a bag, it's going to cost us about, I think it's like $13 a bag doing it
Yeah,
this.
that sounds about right. Like I'm gonna run math real quick because I'm just like that.
Yeah, I get it. Well, for those listening, they might find this interesting. So this year we've been doing a pretty good job at tracking what our input costs
Yeah, it's
are
like
on our
$15
broilers.
a bag for us if we buy it in bulk.
Yeah, so you do get a bit of a discount too. I mean, this is
Hmm.
obviously a really good deal because this would be like $9 for you,
Yeah.
or like 10, but yeah, it'd
Or
be like
like I
nine
was saying, I
for
was
you.
late coming into our call because a friend of ours who also raise hogs, we're mainly a hog producer.
Yeah,
They also raise hogs and they went to pick up their feed this morning and the grain mill had blended something wrong with too much peas, which makes it higher in protein. So it's actually a higher quality feed.
nice.
And they're selling it for like $100 a ton. They just want it all gone by Friday.
Just need to get it out of there. Yeah, that's
Right. And so,
good for
like, I
you
mean,
guys.
that was our friend. He called us. He's like, hey, I have room on the trailer. I can grab one more ton for you. Are you coming down? Like, like,
Back to having that network, building that community, it's beneficial. So you and I were chatting earlier. I'm going to be attending the homesteading conference coming up in Idaho.
mhm,
And again, one of my buddies that's in on these chickens, he's got his own, but he's going to cover my chicken chores for me while I'm away.
perfect.
This kind of thing is definitely a requirement. Having if you are looking to do this homesteading lifestyle, it is very beneficial to try to make a connection with a neighbor or a friend or someone local, or
Hmm.
even hire a high school kid that you can pay cash here and there to watch your place for you. Because
That's what we're doing. We're going into July. In July, we're going to Arizona for a week and we're
yep,
having one of the kids from our kids' co-op. We're going to pay him to come up once a day and bring his brothers and handle the
yep.
whole operation.
And that's all you need to do, because people get scared of taking this kind of lifestyle on because then they're like, well, then I'm stuck at home. Well, if you've seen my gardens, they're massive, and I'm certainly not stuck at home. I like to be at home, don't get me wrong.
Right?
I
There's
really do
no
like
people at my house. It's great. Well, I mean,
yes,
there's the
I'm
people I
very happy
created,
here.
but
It's about as peoply as it gets. I like
yeah.
it. No, and for the times that I am away, I've got friends or family, or like I say, I've definitely hired high school kids in the past too that come in and help me out and take care of the animals. That is rural living, guys.
Hmm.
If you're not familiar with it, if you don't have that kind of community, seek it out because that's how it should be for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's actually a chapter in my book coming out on raising self-sufficient kids about creating your own rural community.
Oh, I that's what I was going to mention earlier. I was doing the math for our broilers for those again who might be interested in hearing, but right now we're projecting our total cost is going to be about $10 a bird. So
That's amazing.
it's very good. And for reference, again, I'm always talking Canadian dollars, but for reference, I have
I have a
priced
lot of Canadian listeners, so
perfect. I've priced out chickens locally from other places, and basically my price is going to be about I think it was like 250 a pound or something. I was predicting about a 4 pound chicken, like that's your
yeah.
average like roaster chicken, finished roaster chicken, because we butcher around 8 9 weeks, so we're not growing them out extended periods of time.
I
But
don't like to do that either. That's just my husband's
my husband would like to.
procrastination.
We they'll finish out about 250 a pound, and I've seen pricing anywhere from about 4.75 to $6 a pound. So we're
Yeah.
doing quite well actually by raising them myself.
Nice, wonderful. Good for you. So we're kind of getting close to the end of our time. Something I ask all of my guests is what does keep growing mean to you?
Ooh, ooh, that's loaded.
Right?
Keep growing. Well, I mean, first of all, we chatted a lot about me encouraging you guys to take control of your food. So I would say definitely I'm going to take that literally in one way and say keep growing. Like if you tried gardening and it hasn't worked out for you, just keep doing it. If I showed you my garden out there right now, you'd be like, really? You know what you're doing? I'd be like, no, I don't. But there'll be stuff out there soon. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Mine looks about the same. So
Yeah, exactly. And then the other way I would take that is more spiritually. Say, keep growing. I take that as entrepreneurial. I think of that I when I'm thinking of my business, keep growing to me means one continue to take one step in front of the other. That's all you need. Forward momentum. One step in front of the other will equal you growing. Whatever that looks like for you, whether it's a business or your home life or an actual garden. One step in front of the other, guys, and it'll get you where you want to be.
that's awesome. Do you want to tell everyone like where they can find you when your next product's launching, that type of stuff?
Oh, so much stuff. So you can find me at the Hillside Market on Instagram and TikTok, and also shop all of my products, including our magazine subscription, our DIY box, and a very new drop, which is some custom hammocks that are like, so if you're into like hiking gear and lightweight packable
Oh,
parachute hammocks, I've got some really cool stuff that just launched yesterday. It's up for pre-sale. So scope that out. And I think yeah, that's it. I'm also on Etsy with my DIY guys. If you're ever on Pinterest, chances are you've probably seen them. They pop up on there quite often. So yeah, my name's Carolynne, the Hillside Market. And if you're going to be at that Idaho homesteading conference, stop me and say hi. I would love that.
awesome. Well, like I said, I'll be there too in my booth for Homestead Science.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely come and stop and say hi to you.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
awesome. Well, thanks again so much for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I could chat about this kind of stuff forever and ever.
Oh, I
So,
know, me too. Well,
it,
thank you so much, and I really enjoyed this. I hope you have a good one.
yeah, thank you. Take care.
Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!